February 28, 1997. Los Angeles. What started as a quiet morning in North Hollywood erupted into chaos, and the entire country watched it unfold live on television. Helicopters hovered above. Sirens blared below. Viewers tuned in to witness two men, dressed head to toe in black tactical gear, standing in a Bank of America parking lot, unfazed, unafraid, and heavily armed. They weren't there to escape. They were there to fight. And in doing so, they would change American policing forever. Before we reveal how two robbers sparked the biggest shootout in lapped history and forced a nationwide change in law enforcement, like this video, subscribe, and stay until the end. Because this is more than a robbery. It's a war story. Larry Phillips Jr. came from a legacy of crime. His grandfather robbed trains. His father robbed graves. Larry, he would rob banks, and become infamous doing it. After dropping out of high school in the 80s, Larry tried to reinvent himself at Gold's Gym in Pasadena. But without the genetics to become a champion bodybuilder, he pivoted to real estate and scams. Forging documents, manipulating sales, stealing identities. He wanted fast money, and he found it. There, inside the gym, he met a man who would become more than a partner in crime. Emil Mătăsăreanu had immigrated from Romania with dreams of fitting in. But by high school, he weighed 350 pounds, suffered from a rare heart condition, and was bullied relentlessly. Gold's Gym was his answer to that pain. That's where he met Larry. Both obsessed over firearms. Both craved power. And both believed they were smarter than the system. Together, they became something far more dangerous than petty crooks. In the early 1990s, Los Angeles was the bank robbery capital of the United States. In 1991 alone, there were over 9,000 bank heists nationwide, nearly 2,400 in LA. That's one robbery every 45 minutes. Most were clumsy, small scores, low risk. So banks evolved. Die packs, GPS trackers, armored vaults. The government increased the minimum sentence for bank robbery to 25 years. The result? Casual thieves backed off. But professionals like Larry and Emil, they went bigger. More planning, more violence, more firepower. They studied security protocols, timed police response, practiced drills, and over time, they transformed from low-level criminals into militarized robbers. By 1997, they were ready. Their target, the Bank of America branch on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, one of the largest in the North Hollywood area. The plan was flawless. Hit the bank at 9 a.m. sharp, during peak vault stocking. Escape in 8 minutes. Use high-caliber rifles and body armor to intimidate and overpower any resistance. They brought everything. 3 Norinco Type 56 rifles, Chinese AK-47s, with 100-round drum magazines. A Bushmaster XM15. A 91 Hong Kong dollars battle rifle for long-range suppression. Over 3,000 rounds of armor-piercing ammunition. Their armor? Full Kevlar vests. Heavy steel plates. Larry even wrapped his groin, arms, and legs in Kevlar. By comparison, lapped officers were armed with 9mm Berettas and .38 caliber revolvers. The difference wasn't just firepower. It was war. 9:16 a.m. Larry and Emil pulled into the north parking lot in a white Chevrolet. Calm. Silent. High on phenobarbital to control their nerves. Inside their gear, they'd sewn wristwatches to track time. They needed 8 minutes. But almost immediately, things fell apart. As they approached the bank, Larry noticed a patrol car cruising past. He paused. Had they been seen? It didn't matter. The plan was in motion. Inside, Larry grabbed a customer at an ATM, threw him to the floor, and fired into the ceiling. Emil stormed the teller area, broke through the security door, and pushed the assistant manager toward the vault. But there was a problem. The vault wasn't one large safe, it was multiple secured compartments, each with separate keys. And worse, the cash delivery had been randomized. What should have been a $750,000 payday became $303,000 in stained bills and exploding die packs. Outside, lapped officers were already taking positions across the street, near a shopping mall filled with civilians. Larry stepped out of the bank and opened fire. Bullets tore through cars, windows, and brick walls. Officers ducked behind trees, hydrants, even parked cars. Their pistols couldn't touch him. Larry's bullets shredded everything. And inside the bank, Emil loaded his duffel bag, unknowingly including 3 dye packs. When Emil joined Larry outside, they moved in sync. Like soldiers. Like machines. The first firefight lasted 4 minutes, a barrage of over 300 rounds. Civilians were caught in the crossfire. Officers were bleeding in the street. Still, they didn't run. Emil's bag exploded, red dye staining everything. A moment later, a bullet grazed Emil just above the eye. They needed to move. But their escape vehicle, the white Chevy, had already been hit. Flat tires. Leaking fuel. Still, they loaded in. Larry grabbed his 91 Hong Kong dollars and returned fire. Emil drove. Slowly. Bleeding. Still shooting from the window. Then Larry's weapon jammed. He swapped it out for another AK, but it was illegally modified and jammed constantly. Each burst required fixing the magazine. Injured and frustrated, Larry kept firing, at officers, at helicopters, at anyone in range. But he was slowing. So was Emil. They tried to escape through a residential neighborhood. Somehow, despite chaos and dozens of officers, they made it to the other side. But now they were separated. Larry took cover near a semi-truck. Emil drove on, bleeding, desperate. They lost sight of each other. Larry's weapon jammed again. He switched to a Beretta, but he was now bleeding from multiple gunshots, including one that hit his subclavian artery. Still, he fought. Still, he refused to surrender. Until finally, with one hand wounded and his body collapsing, Larry fired his last round, dropped the gun, and was taken down. Emil, still driving on 2 flat tires, tried to hijack a pickup truck. The driver escaped, but took the keys. Frantic, Emil tried to hotwire it. That's when SWAT arrived. He dove for cover and returned fire, but was running out of options. He grabbed another rifle, exposed his legs, and SWAT took the shot. 1 bullet. Then another. Then another. They hit his legs, unprotected by armor. He fell, dropped his gun, and surrendered. But officers kept firing. They didn't know he was down. By the time they stopped, Emil was critically wounded. Emil lay in the road, unconscious, bleeding, still wearing heavy armor. Medics arrived, but officers feared a trap. Was there a third gunman? A bomb? They ordered medics to wait. Emil lay there for 56 minutes, until he died from blood loss. 2 robbers, hundreds of officers, thousands of rounds exchanged, dozens injured, and in the end, only Larry Phillips Jr. and Emil Mătăsăreanu died. But what they left behind would echo through law enforcement for decades. When the gunfire finally stopped, the streets of North Hollywood looked like something out of a war documentary. Over 2,000 rounds had been fired in just under 44 minutes. 17 civilians and police officers were injured. The 2 suspects were dead. The city was traumatized. But the question everyone was asking wasn't why they did it. It was how they lasted so long. How could 2 men, armed with illegally modified rifles and homemade armor, go toe-to-toe with the lapped and win for most of it? The answer: the police were simply outgunned. In the days following the shootout, lapped officers across the city echoed the same demand. We need rifles. At the time, most officers carried 9mm pistols or .38 revolvers, completely ineffective against body armor and long-range rifles. During the shootout, desperate officers had run to nearby gun stores, borrowing AR-15s from civilians, because their department didn't issue any. It was a wake-up call. The public had watched it happen, live on the news. They saw police ducking behind cars, unable to return fire, while robbers unloaded armor-piercing rounds. The illusion of balance between law enforcement and criminals had shattered, and America wasn't ready for what came next. In the aftermath, the LAPD and departments nationwide took immediate action. SWAT teams were expanded. Military surplus programs were tapped. Semi-automatic rifles were approved for patrol units. Armored vehicles began appearing in city streets. The North Hollywood shootout became Exhibit A in the push to militarize police. But with that came controversy. Critics warned that arming officers like soldiers would blur the line between policing and occupation. That it would increase violence, breed fear. But for those who remembered the shootout, it felt like survival. Several officers became symbols of bravery that day. Officer James Boravan, a rookie just 2 months out of the academy, was shot in the back, his bulletproof vest saving his life. Officer Martin Whitfield, hit in the leg, dragged himself behind a wall while calling in enemy positions. Detective John Caparelli, already wounded, kept fighting. Later, he would describe the scene as a battleground where we were completely overwhelmed, but we refused to die. These weren't just tactical failures. They were human stories of courage, pain, and the will to keep fighting. The shootout played on a loop for days, every channel, every station. For the first time, Americans watched a real-life gun battle unfold live. They saw bullets hitting buildings, blood on the sidewalk, officers crawling for cover. It changed how the public viewed policing and crime. Suddenly, every baggy trench coat looked like body armor. Every rifle on the street became a potential North Hollywood repeat. It led to panic buying, political speeches, and a growing divide over gun access and crime prevention. And it made one thing clear: the world had changed. Despite their military mindset, Larry and Emil were not trained soldiers. They didn't rehearse live fire. Their weapons were illegally modified. Their planning, while meticulous, lacked contingencies. But what made them lethal was their mindset. They believed they were smarter than the system, faster than police, better than the people they stole from. That arrogance led them to underestimate law enforcement and overestimate themselves. In the end, it cost them their lives. But not before they forced a nation to reevaluate its idea of safety. After the smoke cleared, the LAPD launched a full internal review. Patrol units began carrying AR-15s. All officers received training on active shooter protocols. Tactical deployment strategies were rewritten. The US military also took note. Some of the gear used by Larry and Emil resembled military-grade kit, bought on the black market. It sparked debates about civilian access to armor and weapons. Meanwhile, new laws passed. Bans on certain high-capacity magazines. Restrictions on armor-piercing bullets. Federal funding for tactical police training. The North Hollywood shootout had turned 2 criminals into unwilling architects of police reform. Today, the parking lot outside that Bank of America branch is quiet. But if you know what happened there, you'll never look at it the same way. The sidewalk bears the faint scars of bullet impact. A plaque nearby honors the officers who stood their ground. The shootout is still taught in police academies across the US, not as a blueprint, but as a cautionary tale. Because the next Larry and Emil, they won't walk into a bank. They'll walk into a mall, a school, a concert, and officers will need to be ready. In the end, Larry Phillips died in a firefight. Emil Mătăsăreanu bled out while begging for help. They wanted power, respect, a legacy. They got it, just not the way they wanted. Their names are remembered, but not as heroes, as symbols of a turning point. A moment when America realized it wasn't just fighting crime. It was fighting a new kind of war. What do you think? Should American police be militarized? Or is there a better way to prepare for extreme violence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you believe their actions changed law enforcement forever. Subscribe for more faceless deep dives into the true crimes that reshaped history. Because sometimes it only takes 2 men with rifles to change the rules for everyone.